So if you're ever frequently around other people in conversations and you want to appear to be interesting or charming or have people walk away saying, hey, that person really was fun to talk to or had a great conversation, here are a few things you can do to really stand out from others. And also the opposite of that, how you could be boring. And maybe you want to be boring or maybe you don't, how to avoid it. The most important thing is to remember what people want to accomplish in a conversation. Most people want to talk about themselves and be heard. How many times have you heard in relationship advice or counseling or therapy where people say, I just want to be heard. I want people to listen to me. That's a key element of people's needs as a human. So what can you do in a conversation? Well, you can try to not just listen, but draw that out of them. Here's a very specific thing you can say to a person if you really want to make a good impression. Obviously, the context has to be correct, but you can say, look, think of a subject that you love to talk about, a story you love to tell, a topic that you love to talk about, a fact that you love to explain to other people, something that is unique to you that you just love to say out loud, but that you don't have people that like to listen to it. Maybe it's a story you've told about, when you were in college, you love to tell this story, but nobody wants to listen because all your friends have heard it a million times and they're like, oh, gee, he's telling that story again. Maybe it's something you know about because of your career, your job, your education, that you know about this very specific fact that nobody likes to hear because it's boring. Maybe it's a particular event that happened at your work, at your job, that to you is important, but to nobody else, they really care about it. Think of that in your head and give the person time to think about it and say, now, I want you to tell your story, and I want you to tell it in a way that nobody else wants to listen to or that nobody else likes to hear. Just tell it from your own internal point of view without thinking what I am reacting to it. Just say it however you want to say it. Don't try to change it to make it seem like you think I'm going to like it more. Ready, go. Now, you can change the wording, you can change the way you say that based on the context. Obviously, you don't want to walk up to a stranger and say that, or if it's somebody you know a little bit but not too well, you don't want to, kind of freak them out and like just being too personal. But either way, try to beg a story out of them. The good news is that's all the work you're going to have to do, is thinking of how to say that. Once you've said that to the person and convinced them to tell their story, believe me, the work is done. They will then just go on. It's like winding up a toy and letting it go. Now, during that story, you have to be relatively genuinely engaged. You can't just space out and like look around and not play with your phone. You have to pay attention to them. Maybe occasionally ask a question or acknowledge, yeah, that makes sense, or gee, that was interesting, and let them go. Now, is this going to be difficult to do? Well, it depends on your personality. You might not like it because you want to talk about yourself. You might want to tell your story and have somebody listen to it because you're craving that kind of attention. Do that at a later date. If you want to make a good impression on another person, you will do that better by letting them tell you some unique or unusual or boring story to you, rather than you trying to tell some story you think is exciting about your life to them, because that exciting thing about your life may not be that exciting to somebody else. It might be boring to them. You will be back in your video in just a few seconds. In the meantime, remember that actualhuman.com offers you live one-on-one private video consultation with an expert in this exact subject. We want to listen to your story. We want to hear your questions. We want to give you expert advisement of your options and tell you what we know about your particular situation. Now back to your video. And they're not going to want to hear it. You're not going to impress somebody with an exciting story about yourself in most cases, especially if you do that first. If you listen to the other person, or if there's 4 people in a room, ask them their stories. And if there's more than one person, you can even take this a step further. You can ask one person to tell their story, and as they wrap up, say, great, that was interesting. Sally, what about you? What story do you have? And then if you're the one who's taking control of asking these questions, you can be like the master of ceremonies, the main character in the room. And I can guarantee you that it will have a big effect on how people walk away 2 or 3 days later like, man, we were at that party and man, John was really interesting. He really carried that conversation. Or they might even say that you said some interesting things, even if you never told your story. Because to them, you were the one who orchestrated the whole thing. This can work in a business environment, a social environment, even if you're dating. You can ask the other person the same thing. Now, you don't want to be fake in terms of your interest. If the subject that they're talking about is really not that exciting to you, that's okay. But what should be exciting is the fact that that person is telling you something. They're sharing something about yourself. So you can be excited about the event, even if you're not excited about the subject. Does that make sense? And if you do that, you will make a big impression on a person. Now, if it's going to be hard for you to continue to do it, and you're going to just do it once or twice, and then you're going to go back to being boring old self with that person, you might want to rethink it, because you'll come across as disingenuous. Later on, they're going to say, well, that was fake. He's really not that way. So you're going to have to do this on a regular basis if you're going to be around that person or people in the future. But it's a great way to establish interest. And if you don't believe me, just try it. Try it one time. Try it one time with one person or two people and just see how it works as an experiment. On the opposite, if you want to be boring, go to a bunch of people and just tell a story about yourself. Because I can tell you that the story you have about yourself in your head, and the experience and the vision of that time you went hiking in the mountains and found this lake, and there was a big trout in the lake that you caught it, you're imagining it. To you, that's an exciting story because you were there. You're reliving it. It's very impactful. But to the other people, they're not seeing that movie in their head the way you are. They weren't there the way you are. They don't have the attachment or the sentimental connection to that day, that hour that you do. To them, it's just another story. And they have plenty of stories just like it that to them are even more interesting. So if you want to be boring, tell your story. If you want to be exciting, beg the story from other people. Not just let them tell their story, because if you let them, it's kind of like low bar of permission. If you beg it, like, I really want to hear it, and take it a step further and have them really think of something that they have trouble communicating to other people, it'll be like a magic trick. And you will be far ahead in establishing your value to that person. Again, whether it's business or personal or otherwise. And if it's business, you might even want to prime the pump a little bit. So if you know something about that person, if you know that, let's say they were, CEO of a stock company, you might want to say, well, how does this work in the stock trading industry? What is a story that you love to tell people about that is boring to a lot of people outside the industry? So you can customize it and ask a specific question to maybe get the ball rolling a little bit. After you try it once or twice, come back and let us know how it worked out for you. Thank you for watching another episode of Actual Human Advisory on Describe TV. Remember, we have live one-on-one consultation appointments available at actualhuman.com, where you can book a one-on-one undivided attention live call with a licensed investigator, a licensed insurance broker, a licensed mortgage broker, real estate broker. I'm also a certified real estate title examiner, a certified civil court mediator, along with having developed and started over 15 businesses, several of which were sold for millions of dollars. So if you do have questions in any of those categories, you can arrange a one-on-one live video consultation. Use the link below, and we'll see you on the next video.